Hello, I'm Rob Phillips. Welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about just how important I think it is for all yoga practitioners to incorporate a meditation practice alongside their physical asana practice. I'm going to get a bit into the history of yoga and how important meditation has been within the tradition. I'll talk a bit about some of the benefits of meditation and how they can supercharge your asana practice. I'll even tell a story about how I learned just how deep and important this connection was. And finally, I'll give some pointers and instructions for folks who want to incorporate meditation alongside their physical yoga practice. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'd like to start today by talking a little bit about the history of yoga. So if you've been practicing for any length of time, more likely than not, you're familiar with the fact that the history of yoga spans back thousands of years. It's a practice that began in India and has deep spiritual roots within that culture. What you may not, however, realize is just how far removed the modern yoga practices are from those ancient practices that we hear so much about. In fact, if you go and look at some of the most important texts, such as Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you might realize very quickly that most of what they're talking about is not asana or body-based practices, and a large percentage, probably the majority of what they're talking about, relates to meditation, relates to the mind, and the awareness within our experience. And that is, for me, one of the most important reasons to realize that meditation can be so beneficial alongside our asana practice. It provides a complement to what we are doing here with our modern practices, but it also gives us an important tie back to the older and rich tradition of our yoga practice. So if we go back and we look at some of these older texts, one thing that we'll realize is just how interested the ancient yogis were with the quality of mind, with the quality of the attention. So by stilling the mind, by learning to purify our thoughts, by learning to purify our conduct as well, this would allow us to achieve union with the divine. And in fact, the translation of yoga is that of union. It was thought of a way of being more one with the universe. Now, as a modern practitioner, maybe you don't have such lofty goals, and that's okay. But if you're watching this video, I imagine you've at least appreciated some of the benefits in terms of overall physical balance and some of the mind-body connection that we can learn through a physical asana practice. Now, I'm here to tell you that alongside the purely physical practices, incorporating a more mindful or awareness-based practice can really help to complement and can multiply your physical practice in innumerable ways. So the quality of attention that we cultivate in meditation teaches us to see things more clearly as they really are. And this sort of unbiased awareness, this ability to see things more clearly, can help us immensely with the physical practice itself. So specifically, as an example, you might notice more subtle details about your alignment. You might notice points within the body where you're holding tension, where you're gripping or over-efforting. So as the mind becomes more clear and as we're able to look more deeply, this can help us to tune into the physical practice within the body and make better decisions about what we might be doing moment to moment in our practice. So alongside the clear quality of attention that we can cultivate through our meditation, also by teaching ourselves to slow down, by taking time to be a bit more still, this can help to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the relaxation response, within the body and mind. So this relaxation response triggers the body to focus more on digestion, to focus more on restoring itself. And so if we are engaged in more physical yoga practices, ones that might be more demanding, more taxing on our body, being able to tap into this relaxation response can help us to restore ourselves, can help us to feel more rested and more balanced, and very importantly, can help us to keep from overworking or injuring ourselves through our physical yoga practice. It provides us a counterbalance that's more mental-based as a strong complement to our physical practice. And now there's another benefit of this mind-body connection that I think goes even deeper than just kind of the physiological response we get from being still. Now, whether or not you believe in subtle energies within the body, however far you want to go down this path in terms of the mind-body connection, I can speak from experience to the fact that whatever is arising within the mind has a corollary response within the body. And also, whatever is arising within our body has a corollary response within our mind. One of the benefits of our physical yoga practice is we learn to see that connection a bit more clearly. We kind of get some taste of that by being able to tune more into the physical. But based on my experience, we can also calm the body. We can also connect on a physical level by tuning more into our mind. And so in order to discuss this, I'd like to share my story of how I really learned this connection through experience in my meditation practice. So the story I'd like to share with you today is about my first long meditation retreat, which I took about 2 years into my yoga and meditation journey. And so for background, in terms of my physical or asana practice at this time, I was practicing Mysore-style Ashtanga as my main dynamic practice. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the style of yoga, it's a set series of poses, and the way it's practiced is in kind of a supervised group setting. There's a teacher or several teachers, and they teach each student this series of poses. You learn them on your own, and you practice them on your own with the teacher kind of watching and guiding you. The other thing that's important to this style of practice is at any given time you have kind of your level within the progression where you stop. So this is your last pose, this is the pose you're working on, and the teacher kind of makes the decision on whether you're ready to go on or not based on the progress within your body. So at this time, about 2 years into my yoga practice, right before I was about to go on my meditation retreat, my peak pose was Marichyasana C. Marichyasana C is a deep twist that also involves a bind within the body. And so at this time, I could kind of sort of get into the pose, but I needed an awful lot of help to make it happen. So every day when I went into my Mysore practice, I would get to this point, the teacher would spot me from across the room. She would come over and help me to get into the pose. And I could, but not so much on my own. It felt really, really hard. And so this is where I was at when I left to go on this meditation retreat. Now, the meditation retreat I went to was at Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. If you're interested in taking a meditation retreat, I can't recommend this place enough. It's a wonderful facility with wonderful teachers. But in terms of context of the story and how it relates to my asana practice, there was not much of an opportunity for me to do my Ashtanga practice there. I was in a shared room with another yogi there. There wasn't really a good space that I found where I could do this dynamic and physical practice. So I had to kind of put it on the shelf while I was there. I was not doing my asana practice for these 9 days. While I was there, something very interesting happened. So for the first few days, sitting was rather uncomfortable. My body was tight and I was tense, and frankly, I was kind of wishing for a bit more physical practice to loosen things up. But somewhere about maybe the 3rd or the 4th day, something very interesting started to happen. As my mind got more still, as I got more focused and clear, my body began to relax. Suddenly, I was able to sit for every sit during the day for rather long periods comfortably. The aches and pains more or less went away. And by the end of the retreat, I was really deep in a flow. I was able to sit, I was able to do the practice, and it was a powerful and wonderful experience, not just for those physical benefits, but of course for deepening my mindfulness and connection with my meditation. But the interesting part that relates to what I'm talking about here happened when I got back and I returned to the Mysore room for my Ashtanga practice. So as I came back on my first day, as I had been doing, I went through my progression and I got to this pose, Marichyasana pose. And so as had been the pattern, the teacher noticed I was getting there and went across the room to come and help me. The funny thing that happened was by the time she got there, I was fully into the pose without her help. And even more than that, I was sitting pretty comfortably. I even wasn't having that much trouble with it. Because of the relaxation I had in my mind from the retreat, my body had opened up and poses that weren't available to me beforehand suddenly were. And so in this moment, I had a kind of funny action with my teacher. She walked over, looked at me comfortable in the pose and kind of nodded her head and went, "Isn't that interesting?" And it was interesting, and it really sealed home for me just how powerful the connection is between the body and the mind. This deep mental work that I did on this meditation retreat allowed for my body to open up and allowed for my physical practice to be much deeper and much more accessible than it would have been without the mental work alongside it. And so my hope is by sharing that story with you that maybe you feel inspired to incorporate more meditation alongside your physical yoga practice. Now, I know you may not be ready to go and ship off to a meditation retreat quite yet. That's totally fine. You can always start right where you are. So if you want to begin meditation, I think it's best, like most things, to start gradually and small. So you can start first just by sitting a few minutes a day, and over time you can ramp up a bit longer. I even made a video where I discuss some of the pros and cons of different lengths of meditation time. So if you're curious, check that out. I'll put a link somewhere up here for you to see that. Now, of course, there's many different types of meditation that you might practice, and I'm not going to make a strong case here for exactly what type you should do. If you're curious about a few different styles, I have instructional videos on my site. You can check some of those out and see if anything in particular resonates with you. And if you don't want to commit at all to a particular style, simply just sitting for a length of time every single day will set you well on your path towards the benefits of this meditation and mindfulness practice. Once you've decided how long you want to do, or maybe you want to ramp up over time, I'm going to recommend giving this practice a shot for at least 30 days. It takes time for the mind to adapt. It takes time for you to get comfortable with the sort of work. But once you start incorporating more and more meditation, I hope that you'll start to see some of the benefits that I've been talking about here. So meditation and a physical asana practice work hand in hand to really complete the overall mind-body practice that is yoga. So in conclusion here, one might say, free your mind and the body will follow. So do you have your own story or your own experience between meditation and your asana practice? If you do, please be sure to let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click the like button. And finally, please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I'll be coming out with many more videos like this, talking about yoga and meditation, and of course, the many intersections between the two of them. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you back again here soon.